Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. This week on the podcast, a pair of lost divers were rescued thanks to their dive lights, a POV video of a basking shark being hit by a boat, and there is a dive site that's up for sale if you have some spare change knocking around. But first, the first news story is that after some 38 hours of being adrift in the Gulf of Mexico, a scuba diving couple were rescued, just as the US Coast Guard said to have been on the point of calling off its attempt to locate them, that they were literally at that point where they're like, yeah, it's been too long, we have searched, we're going to start giving up the search. They just managed to find them thanks to their dive lights. So Nathan and Kim Maker, a carpenter and a teacher respectively from Edmond, Oklahoma, had been boat diving with a group of divers on the 24th of July. All 16 of the divers had surfaced from their dive into a storm and had been waiting in heavy swell and pounding rain to board the boat. The makers, unfortunately, were swept away but managed to stay together. The Coast Guard said that it was alerted to the incident that afternoon. Its stations at Corpus Christi, Port O'Connor and Houston sent out 2 helicopters, a fixed-wing aircraft and 2 boats in response to the emergency. It was not until the following night of the 25th, 26th of July that the crew of an Ocean Sentry aircraft making their last run outside of the search grid spotted 2 lights in the water. The divers were directing their torches at the plane, and the crew were able to relay their position some 25 kilometers off the coast at Matagorda to a Coast Guard cutter. The divers were picked up, they were taken to Freeport. Nathan Maker, who was diabetic, had said to be on the verge of a coma when recovered into the cutter, and his wife had sustained an infection. Both divers were also sunburnt, severely dehydrated, and sustained multiple jellyfish stings, but after being taken to the hospital, they were reported to be in a stable condition. The Coast Guard reckoned that they had covered a search area of around 4,300 square kilometers over the period of 36 hours looking for them between the incident being called in and the rescue. Especially, I mean, a lot of divers, they kind of say, oh, what's the point in like bringing a dive torch on every single dive? And it's like, well, for this exact reason. Just because it's brilliant sunshine outside doesn't mean that you're not going to need your torch. And if you are lost at sea, it might take some time, and day will turn to night. A dive torch always very useful, and just multiple like both auditory and visual communication devices, but also things like a Nautilus Lifeline, or like an EPIRB, just some kind of locator beacon. I know they're relatively expensive for something that you hopefully will never use, but in the unlikely event that something like this should happen, you'll be willing to pay whatever it is just to help yourself get found any sooner. So happy ending to this. The main takeaway is, bring as many like location devices and ways to make yourself stand out in the water as possible, because you might get lost at sea. Next news story is an interesting one. The lake divers in the northeast of England will be watching to see whether Capernwray Dive Centre finally finds a new owner to maintain and develop the long-established dive site. So the freehold of the 9.7 hectare Jackdaw Quarry site near Carnworth in Lancashire has been put on the market by the owner Hack Enterprises for a second time in 2 years, this time for an undisclosed sum. So this is an inland dive site, so it's a lake. Divers Carol and David Hack came from RAF backgrounds to buy the flooded limestone quarry back in 1997, with plans at the time to add a cafeteria, shop, classrooms to what was already a popular dive site, and Carol Hack has remained as managing director of the business. Capernwray was previously advertised for sale in June 2022 with an overall price set at £3 million. There was an option to break this all down into like just the dive centre, the lake, and the 250 space car park. They valued those separately at 1.2 and 1.8 million, and the 2.6 hectares of land that was always part of it had already been granted planning permission. So it was like an appealing, there was a lot of potential there. The permission covers construction of 19 holiday chalets with, quote, a positive pre-application response given for 9 accommodation pods. So, yeah, an investor could really sort of make a big change there. Relaunching Capon onto the market, estate agent Savills is highlighting the large number of fish in the lake, which include carp, perch, roach, trout, and a large sturgeon. And, of course, the diving facilities that include the jetty with 2 piers for deep water entry, the concrete slipway, and 2 training areas with non-slip platforms and depths down to 24 meters. It's not just an empty lake full of fish. It does have a training cave, an airliner, 2 light aircraft and 2 helicopters, a minesweeper, 8 other boats, and a diving bell for divers to play with. The dive center itself consists of a conference room, shop, restaurant, workshop, heated changing rooms, a gas fill, and rental equipment areas. Savills says, I actually have the press statement. So Savills, on behalf of Hack Enterprises Limited, is marketing the freehold of Capon Dive Centre in Lancashire for an undisclosed sum. Capon Dive Centre is a well-established national diving centre set within Jackdaw Quarry. The centre also offers open water swimming with a large number of fish. The diving activities are varied and include training platforms, the jetty, 2 piers, concrete slipway, all that kind of good stuff. Numerous underwater attractions. Capon Dive Centre sits on a site extending to 24 acres and benefits from planning permission for 19 holiday chalets. Externally, there are 250 car parking spaces. Property is 2 miles from junction 35 of the M6 and can be accessed off Capon Road. The site benefits from close proximity to a number of attractions, including the Lake District National Park, the Forest of Bowlands, Yorkshire Dales, all that good stuff. Richard Prestwich, Director in Leisure and Travel Trading at Savills, says this is a unique opportunity to acquire a well-established property in an ideal location for diving and swimming enthusiasts across the United Kingdom. We are seeing a growing popularity of wild swimming, which is not only music to the ears of those already championing the dopamine rush of wild swimming, but also for landowners keen to find new ways of diversifying and providing social value. With planning permission and positive pre-application for 19 holiday chalets and 9 pods, the site will also offer the buyer the opportunity to diversifying the existing offering, giving the excellent offering coupled with the great location. We are expecting a high level of interest from a number of potential buyers. So it will be quite interesting to see what happens. It's interesting to see it up for sale for the second time in 2 years. But yeah, hopefully someone with enough capital can snatch this up, and we'll see some development to it. Maybe some more attractions, and it makes sense to have like hotel accommodation nearby, because as much as there is accommodation like in the area, it's not just going to be locals who are going. I've travelled miles across the country to visit different inland dive sites. It is nice just to have a like a safe dive location. You don't have to worry about tides or anything. It's fresh water as well, so it's, especially when you're teaching, it's nice to have those kind of locations. But even recreationally, you can't do it too frequently because it gets a bit samey. But it's interesting. And if there are any millionaires out there with some development ideas, it might be worth checking them out. In other news, it's a sight for divers might hope to never see, but for the first time, researchers have recorded images and data of a shark being struck by a boat. The incident occurred only hours after the 7-meter-long female basking shark had been tagged by a scientific team of Ireland, resulting in the attached camera and sensors capturing the full effects of the impact. So earlier this year, the government established Ireland's first national marine park on its Atlantic coast, protecting 70,000 acres of land and sea around Cokerry, where basking sharks gather seasonally to feed and potentially mate. The researchers were on a field trip to learn more about how the shark's foraging behavior reflected environmental factors. They had attached the activity measurement device to the back of the shark whilst the shark was feeding at the surface, and they had followed in their boat at a safe distance for several hours before leaving the area. On retrieving the release tag the following day, they discovered that the shark had continued its normal surface feeding behavior, carrying out occasional dives to deeper depths until it suddenly made a rapid evasive movement. A boat's keel could be seen on camera cutting across its back just behind its dorsal fin. The shark tumbled, its tail immediately beating faster as it was heading straight down to the seabed, and video showed paint marks and a red abrasion on its skin, but no apparent bleeding or open wound. It was a relatively soft strike. For scientists, this was a unique opportunity to learn more about boat strike, a matter of increasing global concern. The incident occurred in April, and the team's study has just been published. Taylor Chappell, a shark researcher at Oregon State University's Hatfield Marine Science Center and the study's lead author, says this is the first ever direct observation of a ship strike on any marine megafauna that we are aware of. The shark was struck whilst feeding on the surface of the water, and it immediately swam to the sea floor into deeper offshore waters, a stark contrast to its behaviour prior to the strike. Our findings demonstrate the risk and impact of vessel strikes and the need for measures to reduce this risk. The researchers cannot say whether the basking shark survived the strike because the tag was timed to release itself for retrieval 7 hours after it occurred. All they know is that during this time the animal did not resume feeding or other normal behaviours. Even non-lethal injuries can have short and long-term consequences, they point out. Basking sharks are IUCN red listed as endangered globally, but continue to aggregate in large numbers off Ireland, where they are protected under the country's Wildlife Act in 2022, while susceptible to boat strikes because they feed on the surface. Unlike whales, they tend to sink after a strike occurs, making it more difficult to gauge their mortality rates. Co-author Alexandra McInturf, who's a research associate in Taylor Chappell's Big Fish Lab at OSU and co-coordinator of the Irish Basking Shark Group, says this research raises additional questions about whether and how often the sharks are actually occupying such habitats when they are not clearly visible at the surface. Given that Ireland is one of the only locations globally where basking sharks is still observed persistently, addressing such questions will be critical to informing not only our ecological understanding of the basking sharks, but also the conservation of this globally endangered species. The study has now been published in Frontiers in Marine Science, if you want to check that out. And yeah, you can, I'm sure you'll be able to find the video. I'll post a link to our Dive news article down in the description. Training agency PADI has been rounding up some of the activities that marked its 10th annual Women's Dive Day on and around the 20th of July. Katie Thompson, PADI's Senior Director of Environment and Sustainability, says there are more women of all ages diving today than ever before. It's inspiring to see PADI members champion this annual celebration for a decade, hosting events that unite local communities. PADI dive centers and resorts such as Plonge Gran Cozumel in Mexico, Senegan Divers in Indonesia, and Sun Divers Rotan in Honduras organized opportunities for local women to connect with the ocean through scuba diving, in line with PADI's Women in Diving initiative. The owner of Sundivers Rotan, Natalie Schumann, says, "You saw the spirit of PADI Women's Dive Day come to life at this event. Our dive customers are We're diving alongside our local girls, and everyone is having a blast, creating community and bonding over a common love for the ocean. It's always been a day that makes me immensely proud to be a PADI pro and female diver. TGI Maldives and OBLU Nature Helen Gelly had the Maldives Minister of Tourism join in on the celebration as guests tried scuba diving for the first time. Ocean Turtle Diving in the United Kingdom held a female instructor development course in Spain, with the first day of the exam led by a female examiner falling on Women's Dive Day. Torpedo Raised Scuba in Canada announced its second annual Sea Foxes Scholarship, offering financial support towards funding a PADI continued education course to a deserving female diver in Nova Scotia. So it's nice to see some representation. I know that was a fairly common thing that women would say coming into the dive centre, and myself included, it didn't really help to the matter. They said, whenever we go into like a dive centre, especially in the United Kingdom, it's just a bunch of old guys with beards. It's not really a like the most inviting kind of thing. So these kind of initiatives are nice, and it is good to show that it's not just for old guys. It's for all ages and all genders. So it's nice to see that that kind of inclusion, and for them to feel more comfortable and encourage more women to go scuba diving. As far as new dive equipment goes, I don't think I saw any new interesting things being released. It was mainly down to new colours. That seemed to be the theme for this week. Dive Right, leaning hard onto their olive green colourway, which reminded me of Mara's XR. They went into the olive green kind of camo sort of colourways this year as well at the Go Diving show. But Dive Right this week announced their ODG ES155 mask. Gosh, you got to work on that name. And the ODG XT fins. They're both coming in a matte olive green colorway, as well as some of their BCDs and wings. I can see some of the appeal. I know it is not my personal favorite. I probably wouldn't choose that, mainly because I do dive in greener waters. So it's more likely to either, if I drop it, I'm never going to find that again, or for me to be seen in the water. I prefer to be seen, so I prefer brighter colors nowadays. But it is harder to keep those brighter colors clean, whereas if it is olive drab kind of colors, then it is going to be impossible to make it look dirty. So there certainly is a benefit there. And speaking of brighter colorways, X-Deep announced a new colorway for their Radical mask. I think it's called the Radical mask. It's in white, I should say. They've always had the standard matte black. They had a transparent as well, and now there's a white colorway, and that does seem quite snazzy. Then it's becoming a bigger up and coming color is white. Again, especially diving here in the UK, it really stays white, but your mask is more likely to stay white than your fins ever will. Some new colorways. Otherwise, that's about it as far as dive equipment. Again, we're in the dive season, so anything that's going to be announced has been announced. So it is going to be a little while before we see anything too exciting. So on to some Ask Mark questions. The first one comes from Pete Watsons. Definitely need some help on this. I just can't commit to which PCD to get. Okay, I used to dive for around 8 years straight. This is about 20 years ago, mainly channel diving off Dover. Over the last couple of years, doing a few dives in Malta, Red Sea and Corfu, places I'd likely to return to, I've now re-fallen in love again. But I sold my kit some 8 years ago. I've started diving again. I'm torn between the SCUBA Pro Hydros Pro or in case when on holiday I need a little more air, twins, or am I overthinking? Should I go for a backplate setup? I had an online chat with a UK store, and they said to go for the Hydros over a plate. I just don't want to buy and regret. I'll probably do about 10 to 20 dives in a year. Any advice? I mean, if twins are a serious consideration, then backplate and wing is just the no-brainer. It's modular, and you literally build your own BCD. Recreational BCDs are great because you can literally throw them on your back straight out of the box and just go diving with them. Whereas a backplate and wing, it takes a little bit of like assembly and like customization, but once it's done, it is just a normal BCD, and it's cheaper in a lot of cases. If you do go for like a single piece harness, it can be substantially cheaper to get a backplate and wing. And if you want to like add integrated weights, you just add integrated weights. If a part of it breaks, if the bladder is like ripped or torn on a dive, then you just replace that one part. With like recreational BCDs, I'll always remember one guy, he came in after a trip to, I think it was the Red Sea, and climbing out, one of the D-rings on the harness caught on the ladder, like the bottom bit that like sticks out, and as he like pulled himself out, it just yanked the D-ring. I don't think it pulled it clean off, but it ripped it, and like asked the manufacturer, and they basically said, scrap it. It's going to take too much effort to repair it. It'll be cheaper just to get a new BCD. So it's like, ugh. Whereas with a backplate and harness, yeah, you just swap that one particular part. So, I mean, yeah, the Hydros Pro is a lovely BCD. It's pretty heavy because it's made of that monoprene compared to the like nylon Cordura of most BCDs, which is much lighter. The monoprene does make it heavier. It does have its benefits because it is quite strong. It's nice and grippy. It dries instantly, and it can be lots of different fancy colors. But it's really only suitable for one single cylinders. And as much as it is modular, it's not quite as modular as like a backplate and wing. That is my usual recommendation. Not everyone gets on with backplates and wings. Personally, I prefer them. Even in just like a rash vest, because you can get like back pads if you don't like a sheet of metal against your back. But also, it's the bit that's like, if you've got gas in your BCD, it's the bit that's holding you up, so you don't have the weight of anything like bearing down on your back. It's more you're like hanging from it, if that makes sense. So yeah, personally, I just it's always easier just to recommend a backplate and wing. However, yeah, SCUBA Hydros Pro will be a nice BCD, but yeah, only real for like single cylinder diving. Yeah, if you're getting back into your diving, I'd definitely look around at backplates and harnesses, just for like longevity and like customization. That's just a jumble of letters. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. This person says, "Hi Mark, the channel suggests a lot of things for diving for me. You're welcome. The question is for DSNB. Can I inflate DSNB via oral tube from low pressure hose air? Oral tube has square notch. It looks like inflator connector. I'm afraid of water instruction into LP hose. Should I only inflate DSNB from mouth?" So with most DSNBs, especially like closed cell DSNBs nowadays, you'll find a little nozzle at the base, and it will either have the standard DIN fitting, which is what you'll find on most low pressure inflate hose, like your BCD or your dry suit. That's the most common. It's technically called DIN. Most people associate DIN with the regulator, the screw fitting. It is just, yeah, it's a standard DIN fitting for quick disconnect. You can either orally inflate those. If it's metal, it can be a bit hard on your teeth, but you can also use a low pressure inflator hose like your BCD. Some divers I've seen even carry like a second line over their left shoulder. You're never going to get water in that hose because you've got all of that pressure inside of the hose pushing out. So don't worry about water getting into your regulators. They're designed for that. You should have practiced that with your in your like foundational course, remove and replace the low pressure inflator hose. But yeah, you can inflate On the nozzle itself, it won't have the same locking mechanism as your like BCD inflator. You know, when you attach the low pressure inflator hose and it like pushes and clicks, that little collar like locks into place. You don't have that mechanism on the DSNB, so you won't attach yourself to the bag. So yeah, you can either like inflate it by blowing it up like a balloon. Usually there's a spring-loaded valve on the DSNB, but yeah, that can be a little rough on your teeth. Or you can just use your low-pressure inflator hose, and that's pretty quick. As soon as that like fully inflates, it just slides off and shoots up to the surface. Personally, I lean a bit more towards oral inflation nowadays, just because your buoyancy doesn't really shift, because you're shifting the buoyancy from your lungs into the DSNB, give you a little extra time. But hey, the basic answer to your question is that yes, you can use either. There are some rare DSNB designs nowadays that are only oral inflation. They found that more and more divers were orally inflating, and the metal fitting was annoying on the teeth. So they actually fitted a proper like oral inflation valve, but they're pretty obvious. I think to basically answer the question is that yes, you can use your low pressure inflator hose. No, water isn't going to go in it. I wouldn't worry about it. User OB3 II3U says Aqual Legend Elite Black Edition Regulator or SCUBA Pro A700 Carbon BT Black. Black Tech. They're both really nice regulators. I'd probably go for the SCUBA Pro. It's just their A700 is a very fancy, smart regulator. I think you can get it with the new Mark 19 or the Mark 25, depending on whether you want a piston or a diaphragm regulator. Legend Elite Black, as far as like features go, they're both going to be pretty similar. The main one is that the A700 has a metal body except for the front cover, which is carbon fiber now in that Black Tech version. And the first stage as well on the SCUBA Pro Black Tech has the PVD coating, whereas the Legend Elite Black Edition, I think most of the work has gone on the second stage, not the first stage. I think it is just the standard first stage on that. They haven't tweaked that. That would be my choice. It really comes down to what you can get like serviced in your local area most easily. If there isn't an Aqualung or a SCUBA Pro service technician in your area, then yeah, that kind of makes your decision that much easier. Personally, I'd probably go towards the SCUBA Pro. Raving Monster, the D710 V comes with the ZJ18 ball mount with an orange rubber grommet. If you buy the ZJ18 separately, you get a yellow grommet, which is slightly smaller, so a D710 won't fit it without forcing it. Yeah, don't force things. Does Orcatorch intend to make the orange grommet version available to buy separately? I don't know. Why are you asking me? Ask Orcatorch. I do have the Z710 here somewhere. I think I put it back in the box. I imagine if you ask them, they are very easy to and very quick to respond. The person that I talked to, Kimmy, I ask her a question, she gets back within like an hour or so, and that's just on the email address on their website. So yeah, pop them an email. All the brands, honestly, are, well, in my experience, that might be slightly skewed because I'm coming from a at Scuba Dive and Mag website email address, but they are generally very good at getting back to customers. So yeah, any of these kind of sort of answers, just ping them an email and they'll get back to you. And that's it for another week. So all the lists are going to be down in the description below if you want to check out any news stories, find any links. And as always, remember to head over to our website, scubadivermag.com. Check out everything that we do over there on our magazine. If you do have any scuba diving questions, of course, pop over to our YouTube channel, and on any of the videos, they all pop up. Just use the hashtag AskMark, and that way I can filter it a little bit more easily. And thank you for listening, everybody. Remember to like, share, subscribe, do all that good social media stuff. Thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.